We all know who the woman in the hat is, looking regal on a riverboat named for an American state, but who is that gentleman in the red coat beside her? Your title is what exactly?
Her Majesty's Swan Marker.
And what does that mean?
Well, I'm responsible for Her Majesty's swans wherever she exercises her royal prerogative right.
And Her Majesty exercises her royal prerogative over a lot of swans. In fact,
she does have a right to own any swan in the United Kingdom, swimming in open waters, and swans that are unmarked.
These days, what does that mean?
Well, these days, it doesn't mean so much as it did in the 12th century when all the swan upping first started.
Swan Upping, an 800-year-old tradition by which the swans on the River Thames, in the royal neighbourhood upstream of London, are counted, marked in the old terminology, hence the Royal Swan Marker, who this year performed the annual ritual for the first time in the presence of the royal swan owner.
Are they the same family? No, different families. Yeah.
It takes a week for the Royal Swan Marker and the Royal Swan Warden and all the Royal Swan Uppers to count all the swans, many of which used to be destined for the royal banquet table. These days, even queens don't eat swans. The titles haven't changed over the centuries, but the royal diet apparently has. With swan now off the menu, this is less about cooking than it is about counting. It's a wildlife census in old rowing skiffs and fancy clothes. Still, it does beg a final question. Do you know what swan tastes like?
No, I've never eaten it. And I wouldn't. Not in my position.
Tough, stringy, and a bit fishy, they say, luckily for the swans. Mark Phillips, CBS News, with the Swan Uppers on the River Thames.